Here we go. Yes. So we always start on time and end on time at the Global Chamber. And I am so looking forward to Eddie's presentation today. This is the first one that we've had that really zeroes in on sales leadership. And he has a passion for coaching and training global teams. Over his career, he has led and coached hundreds of sales managers and sales reps from startups to Fortune 100 companies on 6 continents, including leadership roles at Komatsu, Pfizer, and Bombardier Aerospace. Eddie has an MBA from Thunderbird School of Global Management and holds certificates in AI strategy from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and leadership from Queen's University. His inspiration is his wife of 15 years, Lynette, and his daughter, Chloe. So, Eddie, thank you very much for taking the time with us and preparing, and I'm looking forward to learn from you. So take it away.
Thanks, Connie, and thanks, Doug. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out of your very, very busy days to talk about sales leadership with me. Just give me a second. I'm going to cue this up. Connie, let me know if you guys can see this.
We can see it. Looks good.
Excellent. So today we're going to talk about sales leadership, and we're going to dive into some pretty simple but very effective ways of leading our sales teams to get the results that we're looking for. Um, Before we get started, though, if you could keep your camera on throughout the webinar. And at the end of the presentation, I'd love to answer any questions you have. If you want to talk about a specific use case, they're, as Connie and Doug said, recording this so you can review this later. And I'm available offline anytime you'd like to talk about any of the things that I'm discussing today, or if you have a specific challenge that you'd like some help with, I'd love to work with you. So when we think about sales leadership, we think about driving goals, driving numbers. That's what most people think about, right? Is hitting those targets. And what we're finding is many companies are not hitting their targets. Their sales performance is subpar. They're noticing that their sales teams are lacking motivation. You can see that when people just don't want to go out and make those sales calls. They'd rather maybe stay at home, do things remotely rather than getting in front of the client. Right now, there's a huge growth in younger generations within sales teams. Actually, 46% of our current workforce is made up of millennial or Gen Z, and by 2027, it's going to be over 70%. So what we're finding is a lot of managers are not feeling connected with these younger generations, and it's leading to subpar sales performance. There's also the problem of talent attrition, people hopping from one job to another, and it's our job as sales leaders to keep people within our organization so that we can benefit from that. And then the last is a lot of us feel the way this lady feels in the right. We feel like we're always putting out fires. We're never really in control of our day and our time. And we want to find a way to gain back that time so that we can be proactive in leading our teams. This is Simon Sinek, and I'm sure you've heard him at one time or another. He's a very famous motivational speaker. What he says is, remember, you're not in charge, and he means in terms of your team. You're not in charge. You're responsible for those in your charge. And this is a real important thing for us to think about before we move forward talking about sales leadership. We can't make anybody do anything, right? They can we can tell people you have to do this or you're going to get fired, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the results that you want. So what we need to realize is we're responsible for the people on our team. We're responsible for how they feel about their work, and we're responsible for motivating and leading them, but we can't make them do anything. So here's some sobering numbers. 65% of sales managers struggle to communicate effectively with their team. And 68% of sales managers struggle with getting their team to adopt new sales strategies, tools, and technology. And that's a huge problem because there's so much new technology that's being rolled out and being used by large organizations and small organizations. And so if we're not able to get our team on board with those changes, we're going to have problems. 43% of sales managers feel that the pressure to achieve their targets is the biggest challenge they face. And the reason they're feeling the pressure is because they're not hitting their numbers. And the main reason they're not hitting their numbers is they're not connected with their sales team. We're going to dig into that a lot here moving forward. So 28% of sales professionals expect to hit quota in 2023. Think about that. Only 28% feel like they're going to hit their quota. I know we're in 2024 now, but that means 72% are not. And that's where it's our responsibility to find out why. Why are we not hitting our numbers? And how can we change what we're doing with our sales team to motivate and lead them to success? When we talk about leadership, there's a lot of buzzwords that people throw around, purpose and goals, and we're going to talk about those things today. But the first thing I want to talk about is actually what is leadership? And I believe leadership is these 5 focus areas here. So the very first thing we have to do is define our purpose as a company. And we hear about this a lot, but if you go and ask your sales teams, what is our purpose? What's our reason for existence? Often they won't know. And that's because we haven't properly defined and communicated that. The next is we need to create strategy and goals that are in line with our purpose. So this goes in a linear fashion. And our strategy and goals really are what we're going to do and by when. The next is we need to create process. And the process is essentially how are we going to do that, right? So if we have these strategies, objectives, and goals, then how are we going to do that? And that strategy needs to be focused on our customer rather than what we think we need to do in the sales team. Obviously, we need to build a team because those are the people who are going to execute our strategy. So, how do we build and motivate a sales team? And then last is manage our performance. And that's, how are we going to actually hit our goals? And that's the area, managing performance, where most sales managers put all their time in that. They say, here's the number, and why are we not hitting the number? When in reality, these other things that I just mentioned have not really been defined and focused on, which is ultimately what's leading to bad sales performance. So taking what we just talked about, defining what leadership is, these are what I call the 4 pillars of sales excellence. So we have leadership at the top. And if you follow this Venn diagram to the right, that's what we need, how we need to establish these things. So leadership is, again, where we're going, our sales strategy, goals, and objectives. Next is who's going to actually do the selling. So we need to hire that sales team and develop and train them, create the process, and then performance. And we already talked about that in the last slide. Where are we going and how will we get there? This is the first thing we need to focus on. I like to use a term called leader's intent. So, and this doesn't matter whether you're the CEO, the CRO, you're the VP of sales, or the sales manager, you have a responsibility to lead your team. And in order to do that, the leadership at the top has to have clarity all the way down to the people that are doing the work. To do that, you have to create a purpose. And again, why are we in business? That needs to be clearly communicated. Next is, what are we going to accomplish in our business? Very clearly communicated. And that can be any type of goal, from your CEO goals all the way down to your sales manager. But probably more important than the what are we going to accomplish is the why. And this is where a lot of sales leaders, sales managers fail, is they say, this is what we're going to do. Here's your goal. But they don't communicate to the team why that's the goal. How does that goal tie back into the company strategy, the purpose? Why are we doing this? The next is, and this is where focusing on the individual is really important. How do these accomplishments add value to the company? And how do those accomplishments add value to each individual team member? So once we give the clear why, then it's, okay, what's the value proposition of doing these things that we're asking you to do? If you focus on all of these elements here, then you'll create an environment that people understand, they feel motivated, and they'll give you the results that you need, because they're going to be open to learning new ways to do it. So when we talk about leaders' intent, that would be starting with your executive team here in this orange triangle. Then there's the departments underneath the executive team that need to actually create their own strategies, right? So there's going to be a strategy with product strategy, your innovation team, those that are developing products. You're going to have a marketing strategy. You're going to have a sales strategy. And what I often see with almost every technology company that I work with, and this is really across all companies, is there isn't a cohesiveness between the strategies, between product strategy, marketing, and sales. And what we need to do is, as we're creating these strategies independently within these departments, we need to be communicating with the other departments and making sure that our strategies are in sync with theirs, and all of our strategies together drive the company strategy that our executive team is pushing down. So what are those strategies that each department has? Why are these the strategies, right? How do these strategies work together? That's the synergy between them. We need to understand that as sales leaders. So if I'm the VP of sales, I need to intimately understand marketing and product innovation and their strategies, so that I can make sure that we're driving those strategies into our sales channels, and we're also bringing back into the business a feedback loop of information from our clients. And if we do that, we're going to get a lot of value. The next thing we need to do is create a sales process that is in line with how our customers buy. A lot of sales processes out there focus on the activities that your salespeople are going to do. You're going to go meet the client. You're going to present something. You're going to get them to agree that they like that, and then they're going to buy it. And actually, that's not the way people buy. People buy based on trust, based on a belief that you understand them, based on, after you understand them, you can create a solution to the problems that they have helped you define, and they see value in those solutions. So, I mean, you can create your sales process with a lot of different stages. I like to go from lead generation, which is a lot of research-based activities. You're learning about your targets, you're looking at the org charts, and you're deciding who you need to get to. And then that drives the meetings that you're going to set up. But ultimately, the outcomes we're looking for is building trust, defining problems, defining future states. And then ultimately, once we can define a problem, we define the cost of the problem, we define the customer's desire to solve it, and then we scope a solution. And as long as your solution has a very clear business case, you have a very high likelihood of winning the deal. So all of the activities need to be focused on the customer and defining what they need. And when we get into goal setting in a second, our KPIs are also going to be following those specific activities within each sales stage. So goals that motivate performance. Here's another somewhat sobering number. Only 17% of sales teams have well-defined sales goals. That is, to me, shocking. That means 83% of sales teams either don't have well-defined sales goals, or those goals actually aren't driving the performance that they're looking for, right? So they have the wrong sales goals. So when we're setting goals, we need to realize, well, why are we setting goals? We're setting goals because those goals drive ultimately the end state that we're looking for. Those goals have to be very clear and understood by the team. So if you set goals and you just push them out and you don't explain to people those goals and why we have those goals, and if the sales team doesn't agree to those goals, then you're going to have a disconnect. And at the end of the day, you're going to see your sales performance suffer. Those goals have to be, we said this earlier, they have to be linked to your company strategy, and they have to be linked to your ultimate sales strategy. So, if your sales strategy is to gain market share in a new market, and you create sales goals that are only based on dollar amounts sold, what's going to happen is people are going to go after really large deals, which have a lower probability of being won, and you're not going to get the market share growth while you might get the revenue growth. So understanding ultimately what the strategic goals of the company and your department are drive your other sales goals. We're going to talk about this in the next slide. Reverse engineer your goals. What I mean by that is start with the end state goal, like we're going to sell this number of units or this amount in revenue, and then using your sales process, you have goals set up along the way that are proactive, not reactive. And that's this next bullet here. Your goal KPIs need to be leading and not lagging, meaning they're telling you the health of your sales pipeline along the way, and they're giving you insight into what needs to be changed or tweaked when you're coaching your sales teams to get ultimately your end goal. If you focus only on we're going to sell this much, or we're going to have this much market share growth, and you don't have reverse engineered KPIs along the way that are leading, the chances of you hitting your goals are very slim. Focus on outcomes, not activities. We talked about that before. And I'm a big believer in using data to manage performance and to drive sales. Most companies now have a CRM, and that CRM is you database your sales calls, you have all your contact information, but really the most powerful thing a CRM can do is give you reporting. You can do trend analysis off of it. There's new AI-based technology. One's called Gong, and there's others I can help you with that can actually listen to sales calls and tell you whether you're on the right track or not. And they can also feed your CRM. So using data to be proactive and read the trends and really hone in on where you need to be leading and coaching is really important. So I said reverse engineer your sales goals. So up at the top, this is a sales process. These are the stages. And within each of these stages, I've given some examples of key performance indicators. And, for instance, in lead generation, you might have a KPI of number of account plans created. or number of new appointments set, right? Ultimately, in lead generation, though, what you're looking for is your number of warm leads. You're creating leads, and you want those leads to create new opportunities. So you can have KPIs that are opportunity focused, number of new client sales calls, number of qualified opportunities created, and ultimately they drive a goal that you're going to be tracking, which is number of new opportunities created. Then you get into the scope stage, and you've got leading KPIs like the number of opportunities with problem, cost, and desired future state defined, which I believe to be probably the most important thing for salespeople and sales leaders to focus on. If you can do this really well, you're going to see your win rate at the end of the day much higher than you would if you don't focus on this. So number of opportunities qualified in this case is that goal. So in order to get these numbers in each of these stages, these goals, you start out with your ultimate, this is what we want to accomplish at the end of the year. So in this case, we want 10 wins, right? Whatever those wins are. Over time, if you're using your CRM and you're tracking your stage management, then you can actually see the percentage of deals that go from stage to stage. Once you establish that, then you can reverse engineer real easily. So if we have 10 wins that we're looking for, and we know that 75% of the deals that we negotiate, we win, then you can just take 75% of that. We need 14 deals to negotiate. And if we know that, well, we need 75% of the business cases that we create go to a negotiation, then we need 19 business cases created. And you can just keep reverse engineering this all the way back to your number of warm leads. And in this case, to get 10 wins, we actually need almost 230 warm leads. This is where a lot of sales leaders, they just give a goal at the end of the day, but they don't actually know how to engineer those wins. So that's what I'm showing you here, a way to do that. And you can set your CRM up to track all of this for you, to automatically generate reports for you whenever you want them. And you can kind of see how you're tracking each of these sales stages, both for your deals, for each opportunity, but also for your pipeline. So how do we motivate winning sales teams? And a lot of the stuff that's on this slide are things we talk about a lot, but they really are powerful. I remember I played sports growing up, and the coaches that I remember, the ones that impacted me long term, that I still think about, actually did all of these things. And coaching and leading sports teams, in my opinion, is no different than coaching and leading a team in business. The first thing that I always like to focus on is being an empathetic leader. Gone are the days of telling your team, you're going to do this, this is when you're going to do it by, and that's it. If you lead a sales team that way, and you don't put yourself in their shoes and get to know them and understand the differences between each team member, and actually lead to those differences, you're going to find people checking out. You're not going to see motivation. You're going to see a lot of attrition. So, empathetic leadership is probably the most important aspect of leadership that I believe in. You want to empower your individual and team. You can do that in many different ways. Happy to talk to all of you about that at another time if you'd like. But, each of your individual team members is going to have different things that they want to do. So if you empower them to do those things, you're going to see a lot more buy-in. Build leadership opportunities. So your superstars, those that they really know what they're doing and they do it well, give them a chance to lead others in the team, whether it's new team members or maybe bringing in new technology. give them a chance to show off what they know, and that's going to help motivate them. Be clear about expectations, rewards, and penalties. Um, this is what I expect out of you this year. These are the things that we're going to do to get there. Here's the rewards if we all perform. But the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is, well, what are the penalties? So, you can gain a lot of commission or you can gain a promotion, so that's a reward. But if we don't hit these numbers, there's going to be a negative effect on our budget next year. We're going to have less money available to pay out commissions, whatever it is. But it's up to you to clearly convey that to your sales team so that they can get on board. And they're never surprised then if they don't perform, if you have some level of penalty. Results over activities, we talked about that earlier. Another one that's super critical that I mentioned earlier is, don't tell people what you're going to do unless you tell them why. And spending time really emphasizing this is why we're doing it, why it's important to the company, and why it's important to you, the value to you. If you do that, you're going to get buy-in. Another, when we talk about coaching, is we want to ask, not tell. So, you can tell your salespeople they need to do, they need to sell this way. You need to do your opening this way. You need to do your closing this way. But everybody's different and they have their own style. So what I suggest you do is, show them, here's a way to do this. How do you feel about that? What are other things that you want to learn to be able to do this more? Ask them rather than tell them. And then the last is just being flexible. And this is especially important with younger sales team members. Whether it's flexibility on time, time in the office, flexibility on style. Don't be rigid. There's a lot of different ways to sell effectively and to lead effectively. So be open and flexible, and you'll get a lot more motivated sales team members. So the next thing we're going to talk about is coaching a development culture. So what is a development culture and what is coaching culture? Coaching is often misunderstood. It's often thought of as what we normally think of as management, right? So sales leaders will say, well, yeah, I meet with my team once a week and we go over their sales numbers and I'm coaching them. That is not coaching. Coaching and management are, two sides, opposite sides of the same coin. You have to have both. Management is more about, well, here's our goal and how are we tracking our goal. Coaching is, why are we hitting our goal or not hitting our goal? What are the things that are getting in the way of us hitting our goal? What are the activities that we need to be focusing on to get back on track? So it's important to understand the difference between coaching and management. Now, when we talk about coaching, I've heard, many people say that some of the younger generations, they want to communicate more digitally, and they don't necessarily want to have as much face-to-face conversations. And actually, the numbers don't bear that out. Millennials and Gen Z actually want feedback 50% more often than other generations do. And 42% of millennials and Gen Z want feedback every week. That's twice as much as Gen X and the baby boomer generation. And we don't think about that as leaders. 77% of millennials and Gen Z say they're not getting enough feedback. And that number should open your eyes. That means they're hungry for it. They want feedback. They want to learn and grow and be good team members, but they need somebody to be proactive in a leadership role to do that with them. And this is where it's important, when I said earlier, ask, don't tell. a lot of the younger professionals, they don't want somebody to come in and just say, hey, do this. They want connection with their purpose, and they want somebody to say, this is why we're doing it, and this is why it's beneficial to you. So hold on real quick. Sorry, let me just recalibrate this real quick. All right. So who should you be coaching? And should you coach everybody the same way? These are questions that I'm often asked. And the answer to those questions are you should be coaching specific individual performers different ways. I like to use a performance capability matrix, and looking at, if you've got somebody who's very high capability but low performance, those are the people that we want to spend most of our time coaching, because we know they have the capability, but there's something getting in the way of their performance. And it's our job to figure out what's getting in the way. And that's a whole separate topic that I'd love to talk to you about. But your sales team is going to have many different types of performers. So you'll have some that are lower capability, and that. I mean, they may not have some of the skill sets of some of your other salespeople, but they're still hitting good numbers. So that's a really good team member. You want them and you want to support them, but you don't necessarily need to spend as much time with them, coaching, as you would say the person that has the high capability and is low performing. The area that a lot of sales leaders have trouble coaching is their superstars. And the reason that they have trouble coaching their superstars is they're often coaching their superstars the same way that they coach their performance improvement bunch, which is that lower right quadrant. If you've got people that are very high performing, I mean, they're knocking it out of the park, you don't need to be spending time micromanaging or micro coaching every single thing they're doing. They're obviously doing things really well. You may actually want to spend more time finding out what they're doing really well, so you can scale those skills through the rest of your team. But if you want to demotivate a star, if you treat them the same way as you're treating the underperformers when you're coaching them, you'll see them get very frustrated. They feel like they're not actually understood or heard. So just something to keep in mind. And I leave the lower left quadrant that says replace. And I'm not trying to be overly harsh here, but as sales leaders, we need to understand our team members and their makeup. And if they have a low capability, whatever that means to you and your company and your team, and their performance is very low, you have a choice you need to make. Do they maybe have more capability? If they do, then you could put some more time in. But if you're certain their capability is low and their performance is low, you may need to move them into another position and then open up some space on your team to bring in other sales professionals. So the next question is, when should you coach? And in terms of sales, you can coach a lot of different things. If you're looking at your sales process here, you could spend time coaching lead generation. You could spend time coaching negotiating and closing. And what we often see is sales leaders spend more of their time actually coaching these latter stages. So when we're getting ready to negotiate, the sales leader says, all right, let's sit down, let's create a strategy, and this is how we can do better, and let's role play. And what you find often, if that's when you're starting your coaching or spending most of your time coaching, you'll find that, well, a lot of this other work that needed to be done and done well isn't done. And so you end up ready to negotiate and you're not actually ready to negotiate. There's still a lot of things that need to be done in these earlier stages to get to the point of negotiating. So I recommend all sales leaders spend most of your time here in the strategy portion, making sure that we are targeting the right customers that fit our strategy and are going to drive our business. And then once we have those initial meetings set up, being very, very proactive in our strategy for those meetings so that we can define the problems that they have and we can create a valuable solution that solves those problems. Because ultimately, if we don't define the problem and the cost, we don't have a value proposition. So the value equation itself it's predicated on knowing the problem and the cost of the problem, and then you can quantify value. So I spend most of my time coaching my sales teams here. And then what happens is when you're creating the business case, or when they're creating the business case, you can use a lot of your technical experts to help them build the business case. You don't necessarily have to be doing that with them. And then when they're ready to negotiate, it's a lot faster because you already know they have all the information they need here to be able to negotiate effectively. So it's just a matter of checking in prior to the negotiation. And then when we talk about a coaching process, I like to keep things very simple. I use what's plan, do, review. Many of you have probably seen OODA loops and there's a lot of phrases around coaching, but first looking at, what are we trying to accomplish? That's your plan. What questions do we need answered? And so if I'm working with a sales team member and I sit down and talk to them, I say, okay, so here's the goals that we already agreed to. How are we doing? Well, this is how we're doing. Well, what is it that you want to change or improve on? That's all part of the planning here. When you're doing a sales call or when you're planning a sales call with your sales team, whether it's a team member or all of them, you're going to want to have them define for you, what do they want to accomplish? What questions do they need answered? Another is, what risks do we need to consider? All of that happens here in the planning stage. The doing is the actual execution. So as a sales leader, I'll spend a lot of time going on, I call them ride-alongs, but you go do sales calls with your sales team members, and you make sure that what you worked out with them in terms of a plan is actually being executed. When you're doing that, I suggest don't take over the sales call. It's a lot of sales leaders have been very successful in sales themselves. So when they see a sales call kind of not going as well as they'd like, they take over in the sales call. That is not effective from a coaching standpoint. You want the people that you're coaching to feel uncomfortable and think on their feet and learn. But that's the doing part. And we can utilize a lot of AI-based technology to help us analyze how our sales team is doing, especially for online, remote meeting type sales presentations and sales meetings. Happy to talk to you guys about that later. And then the next is review. And if you plan and do, but you don't spend time reviewing, like a post-mortem with your team after, then a lot of the things that you learn along the way get lost. So, always, whether it's after a sales call or after a sales negotiation, sitting down with that individual and saying, okay, how did you do? This is what you planned. This is what you did. How do you feel about that? What do we need to do better next time? What are some of the things that we forgot? this is just a summary of the coaching process. There's so much more that goes into coaching. So I definitely don't want to make this sound trivial, but this is the methodology that I use. Now I know Connie, you do a lot of coaching yourself. I'm certain you have a very well thought out methodology, but you know it. I imagine it follows something similar to this. Um, in selling, I like to incorporate this coaching process within each sales stage. So the things that I'm coaching on are different depending on the stage that we're in, right? And the activities that we're going to be planning out, the actions are different. And we can set all of that up in our CRM so that it makes coaching very simple. And that, my friends, is the end of this presentation. There's so much that goes into sales leadership. I just kind of wanted to touch on those four pillars of sales excellence and the areas that you as sales leaders can really focus on to get performance. But obviously there's a lot more to it. So thank you very much for your time. And if you're interested in having a discussion at another time, please let me know, and I'd be happy to schedule time with you.
So, Eddie, thank you. And if you just stop screen share, we'll come on and we do have time for questions. And
Sure.
I just really appreciated your structure and also your empathy. So I have two first questions, and then I'm going to open it up, and whoever wants to let us know they have a question. So, what is your definition of sales?
Ah, that's a very good question. So, sales is delivering whatever it is that the buyer needs that you agree you can deliver. So it's ultimately I look at it as delivering value, right? Because people don't buy anything, they don't spend money unless there's a value, right? Otherwise, you just don't do anything. You don't just leave it as it is. So I believe sales is understanding that, defining that, understanding what the needs are, creating a solution that's going to solve those needs or those problems, and delivering it. And it needs to be a mutually beneficial transaction. So it's beneficial first and foremost to the buyer, but also to you as a seller.
Thank you. And then, what's your definition of marketing?
Excellent. Marketing is, you can call it the four P's. Your product, price, promotion, and placement. Um, five P's if you include people, which you should. But marketing to me it's the vehicle. Okay, this is how we're going to get our message out, create our brand, generate new leads. So marketing is instrumental in generating leads. Salespeople can generate leads as well, but it's better if marketing is generating those leads. So their strategy has to be in line with that sales channel strategy, whatever channel you're using, so that whatever marketing is doing is actually benefiting the sales team. They are empowering the sales team. The sales team is your conduit to the customer. They're the ones that are getting information, understanding, again, defining problems, and so there needs to be a cohesiveness there.
Yes, thank you. So, who else has questions? Please come off camera and let us know, even if you want to put your hand up and okay, Paul, please.
So, question, to what extent do you think salespeople should be involved in marketing?
Well, if we're talking about marketing, again, helping create the product or create the pricing or create, the deciding where we want to place these products, I don't believe sales people like the producers, those that are working with the clients, I don't see that as a primary responsibility for them, because they ideally would be focusing more about on building relationships, defining problems, creating solutions, business cases, and actually selling. I think that the sales leader, whatever that leader, whether it's a VP or sales manager, whatever that role is called, I think they definitely need to be involved with the marketing team, but they're not part of marketing. They have a different responsibility. Their responsibility is to build a sales team or a sales channel that's going to execute the sales strategy. Marketing is creating, again, brand awareness and everything we talked about earlier. A lot of tools come out of marketing. So the sales leader needs to be working with them. These are the tools that we need, or these are the presentations we need, or we're going to go to this expo or conference, and this is what we're trying to accomplish, and we need help from marketing. So there's definitely, what I was talking about before, that cohesiveness needs to be there. But I think that's a sales leader working with the marketing team, not the salespeople.
Okay, just a follow-up. Do you think that salespeople should be at trade shows?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what you're going to get at trade shows and conferences is a mix of marketing people and salespeople. It seems to be those are the best run booths that I come across. And by the way, your booth, Paul, is fantastic. So you're doing really good with your trade shows. The marketing people are focusing on one thing, while to me, the salespeople should be focusing on connections, relationships, defining areas where people have problems that you might be able to create a solution. Marketing doesn't do that as a primary responsibility. Marketing is more focused on the company and the product, your company and your product, and getting a message out, while sales is more focused on understanding the client. But they both need to be there.
Thank you. Andrea.
Hi. Thank you so much for this. This was really informative. I appreciate that. You said something in one of your very first slides that you are responsible for how they feel, and meaning your team. So I wonder if you would share more about that.
Sure. And I mean, I guess I should preface where, you can't change how anybody feels. How they feel is how they feel, right? But you need to create an environment that fosters positivity. So, feeling connected with the purpose of the company, feeling like their ideas are included or appreciated or respected. They feel motivated, right? So it's our responsibility to create those environments for them. Obviously, we can't make anybody feel anything, but we can control the environment or parts of it at least, and hopefully, what you want to create is a team that's got trust, resilience. There's a lot of things that you want in a team. That's a separate discussion as well, and it's your job to create that platform for that to foster.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who else has a question for Eddie? Doug?
Thank you.
Doug?
I figure out how to raise my hand. In the concepts that you talked about, when you talk about the sales leadership role, sometimes that's coming from the sales manager or VP. Sometimes it's from other people in the organization. Sometimes it's the CEO. Could you frame the mentoring and some of the support that you talked about for the different people in the organization? I presume that a lot of your conversation was for the direct report for the sales team, but there are other people that can help and mentor. Could you talk a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely. And so that's a great question, Doug. I'm a firm believer that sales starts at the top, at the CEO level. And a really well-functioning organization is a total sales organization, a TSO. where everybody understands that they have a job to sell and to lead sales. So if that's true, then the messaging from the CEO needs to flow through down to their executive team, and the executive team to the management team, and the management team to the producers, those that are actually going out selling. So this presentation was really for everybody, Doug, because leaders' intent, remember that one of those first slides that I had, that is whether it's the CEO, the CRO, the VP, the manager, they all have to have their own level of leaders' intent, which says, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. This is the value to you. This is the value to the company. This is what we're going to do, the goals. This is this is how we're going to do that, the process. Every from the CEO all the way down, everybody needs to have a similar framework, right? The difference is going to be what they focus on. So the CEO is going to be focusing on high level vision, right? The high level purpose and vision, and building senior level relationships. Your executive team is going to be thinking about a few different things. So, but the framework itself that I outlined is the same, in my opinion, should be the same from the top all the way down. Doug, did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, you did. So at a general level, I'm thinking about specifically how to help on a daily basis and the frequency of help, and also seeing Connie and Andrea here, who are experts in personal positive intelligence and other ways. Each of us see salespeople, and the natural amazing salespeople are just gifted in ways that are just you can't teach them, right? They're just like amazing in what they do. And then there's everybody else, and there's certain tools and things that need to be done. So for me, and also hiring and firing and evaluating and things like that. And so there's a lot of issues related to that. I guess I'll take it offline. It's great to have yourself who's got the expertise and so many different experiences working with companies all over the world. So thanks for all that you do.
Yes.
Thanks, Doug. And just to do I have a second, Connie, or are we
yes?
So I'll address that. Doug's absolutely right. And by the way, Connie, I would love to touch on a few of the things that Doug brought up in maybe a future presentation. So, how to hire the right salespeople. There's a lot there that we couldn't get into in an hour. How to coach, to answer Doug's question, and I mean this all the way up to the CEO, I firmly believe that the CEO should be coaching their executive team. They should be taking time and talking to them on a cadence. So the cadence needs to be, consistent. It needs to be, followed through with. A lot of times people in high level positions get really busy and we'll just cancel this meeting. That doesn't work from a coaching perspective. So consistency. I like to meet with people at least every 2 weeks. And to me, that doesn't matter whether it's the CEO meeting each individual executive team member, or those executive team members meeting their managers, at least every 2 weeks. The things though that they will all do or should all do is, again, what are you trying to accomplish? How's it going? What's getting in the way? What activities do you need to do to fix that or change that or whatever it is? How can I help you with that? And then what are the due dates for that, right? And to me, whether it's the CEO to the executive team or any of them, it's the same.
Yes, Eddie, I did make a note here to talk to you about further coaching and how coaching salespeople. And Donna, I know that's not how I'm supposed to say your name, but go ahead and ask your question.
Connie, Donna works fine. So thank you very much, Eddie, for putting the framework and presented it so structured and very accessible for anybody, even if they're not in business. So thank you very much for that. And I just want like a question, maybe of your opinion, because I've noticed recently, like people want to have huge numbers. They want to have, like, I receive tons of emails like, I will create a pipeline for you that you will have 100 appointments per week. It's like, I don't want to have 100 appointments per week. So I've seen a tendency of quantity rather than quality. So my question is, do you believe also that instead of having 100, it's better to increase your percentage of closing in a way that when you have that, then all the leads you qualified and get into your funnel will basically be a better time spent for everybody? What is your opinion about that?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that should be the goal as a sales leader is whatever those KPIs are that you're looking at, you're improving the percentage or the probability of getting to the next stage. And if you can improve those things, you can literally tweak them, then you're going to end up with a higher win rate. And that should be the end goal, is higher win rate. Because the higher your win rate is, the more efficient you are as a sales team, which means you could possibly bring on more salespeople, right? If you have a team that's not getting any wins, but they're talking to 1,000 people a week, then there's something wrong there. And that's, you need to look at it. Is it, you're creating the wrong targets? Is it that, it could be a lot of things, but along the sales process, there's a lot of things to look at. What is it that we need to change? No, but absolutely. The more efficient, the better.
Thank you. Okay, our last question, Andrea, real quick, please.
Yeah, I don't know how quick a question this is or answer this is, but my frustration is I work with people in the areas of executive coaching, presentation skills, communications, and I'm thinking of one client, and I'm very good friends. I've known this person, I've coached her for the CEO, and I work with a lot of their salespeople in those capacities, and I see a lot of what you've presented here. Okay, and I see the frustration that they're all experiencing, and I have communicated to them several parts of what you're talking about. Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And yet there's a real resistance to taking it on and not just focusing on, are you meeting your quota? So I'm curious what you see as the disconnect there. Because when I hear you talk about KPIs, I think, okay, that's activity, that's not results. So if you're focusing on that activity, it ought to lead to these results. But I'm hitting a brick wall. So that's kind of, I'm working on pieces downstream, but not upstream.
So, okay, Andrea, that is a really good question. And I think you and Eddie need to have a one-on-one. And
I do have an answer to that question. Love to talk to you about it. I have the same problem as a coach.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Eddie, thank you so much. This was so helpful and informative. So everybody connect with whoever you wanted to, and we will definitely invite Eddie back. So thank you, everybody. It was good to see you here, and the recording will be out there, and you can go back and review it and send it along to other people. So Doug, anything you want to say before we say adios?
Connie, you're amazing. And Eddie, thank you so much for the information. We definitely need to have some additional follow-up. Thanks for your leadership.
Yeah.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Thanks, Doug.
Happy New
Bye,
Year.
everybody. Happy New Year.